Adventures of Sonic Episode 39, Tails Prevails. Okay, so this better be another Tails-focused Tails in Charge episode. I'm sick of Tails being worthless in this show. He needs to do something like turning a truck into a transformer again. Sonic says his birthday is a few days away, but doesn't specify which birthday that is, and Tails wonders what he's gonna get Sonic and wanders the city. His acting's just as cringeworthy as ever, and that's gonna drag down the episode. He wants to rake leaves to get money for Sonic. He tries to rake the leaves faster by spinning his tails to create a tornado, and some asshole civilian complains at him for sending the leaves to his lawn by mistake. Get a fence! Instead, he yells at Tails for his own stupidity. Fortunately, he gets what he deserves by getting caught in the tornado, and Sonic saves the day with a counterforce. Tails arbitrarily doesn't tell Sonic the truth about why he wants the money, though I can understand why he wouldn't want Sonic to loan him money. He complains that Sonic would deliver the newspapers in a second. He starts throwing them while flying, says it's hard to aim at the speed, and I'm expected to believe that he throws the newspapers hard enough to break some windows. Then he gets some irritating civilians angrily chasing him because of it, and Sonic has to save him again. It gets suspicious that he's trying to earn money for him. Tails goes to the city dump. He gathers some junk in a pile and we hear the sound of tools. He looks at a blueprint out of nowhere and wants to make a bike thing for Sonic. It would be nice if the show stopped treating him like dirt for once, and actually made his bike not fall apart and work well, making him the brilliant engineer he normally is, because this seems too good to be true. Scratch sends flying, chomping teeth at people to scare them away from Sonic's birthday party, and Sonic goes into a tornado to defeat one and throws it to destroy some others. Some false teeth take their sweet time going up to a woman, letting Sonic use a magnet to attract them away conveniently. He then throws the magnet he shouldn't have at the robots. Sonic opens his present and sees a bike. Somehow I'm expected to believe Tails didn't know how it worked when he made it. I mean, where did he even get those blueprints anyways? Sonic falls off the cliff, but it's fine because it's a hover bike. Why did he think that Sonic would fall to his doom? Sonic tells everyone that Tails is a genius,
made by my own genius buddy Tails.
And Scratch wants to tell Robotnik the truth. I hope we're not supposed to believe that they're mistaken in believing this based on Tails not knowing how the bike worked. I hope this stays the case for the rest of the show. What took it so long? Granted, I would prefer if it was original and he was a mage, but this is good too. But if it's just one episode, it's not going to be enough. Robotnik says that Tails' engineering could come in handy, and he'll make Tails cooperate of his own free will, even if he has to force him. What kind of dialogue is that? And he's not going to force him, which would have made sense. Tails is with the Professor Von Slammer with a lab coat, and the Professor wants to end Sonic's reign of terror. But he won't, because that would be gutsy of the show and make for a good finale.
With my genius buddy Tails helping to build it, there's no way it can fail.
Again, he better not be wrong. Robotnik terrorizes some citizens, and the Professor pulls a lever to open a trap door with a ladder for Sonic, and he somehow manages to be just fine running down the ladder instead of just having to climb down it like would make sense. He should have just fallen to his doom from that. Robotnik puts on a stupid disguise, and I guess I'm expected to believe that it'll make sense for him to fool people with it for an idiot plot. Scratch shows up around the Professor's house with smoke behind them, and Sonic shows up with a fireman suit he shouldn't have and tricks them into falling down and on top of each other. Robotnik approaches Vaughn and shoots a rope tire at him, and plans to take his place and trap him in a closet. So I see the plot will completely fall apart because rather than Robotnik using an invention like a scanning ray to make himself look exactly like Vaughn, we'll have the completely brain-dead plot where somehow Tails thinks Robotnik is him, despite being a genius and knowing he's larger than him. This is so stupid. This episode could have been redeemed from its terrible beginning by him being smart, but the show's brain-dead insistence on overusing disguises ruins it. Tails shouldn't be fooled by this and start making stuff for Robotnik. And trying to disguise his voice doesn't work. It's still not Vaughn's voice. Sonic flies the bike and dodges the Professor's security system. He activates the bike autopilot, it goes into a pipe and comes out the air vent. Robotnik gets mad when Tails insults him and just barely avoids losing his temper and grabs him with a crane. See, this is another reason this plot should have fallen apart really quickly. He would have lost it with him way earlier. Sonic gets knocked down by something thrown at him from the window above him, and fortunately this gets Tails to figure out it's not the professor. And Sonic climbs into the sewer pipe and is realistically unhappy about doing so.
Don't even ask.
Robotnik pulls a lever and activates Tails' machine, which chases the heroes. How did he even get to this point? Why couldn't Robotnik just make the machine himself? Why would he ever be insecure enough to think that he'd need a second engineer with him? I assumed earlier that Robotnik would have tried to brainwash Tails with that golden headband thing he made, or the cone thing that brainwashed the kangaroo. That would have made this all make sense. The machine has a backup propeller and wings. Eventually the heroes get sent out of the machine and Tails ends up near the professor. Robotnik presses a button to fly away on the machine and he tries to shoot at Sonic in the hoverbike that I hope will stick around for future episodes. Because it would be really lame if it didn't.
I have you now.
Robotnik sounds really weird and low pitched when he says he has Sonic now. Why did they keep that take? Was that a joke? He panics and Scratch's balloons get popped so he ends up falling on Robotnik. Oh great, Tails is kidnapped and tied up again. Did this have to happen? Whatever, it amounts to nothing as he and the professor jump off and Sonic saves them in the bike, which he pedals really fast. Sonic talks like a pilot amusingly, and Tails apologizes to him unnecessarily and they hug. Because bullshit, Tails says he won't stick around to help the professor with his inventions and become a better engineer and become better at fighting Robotnik, because being an inventor is fun, but he has to stick around and help Sonic on his adventures. Fuck this! Go to God! You can do both, you know, idiot! Just make a ray gun! Just build a ray gun! Who thought that was okay? The Sonic Says section has Sonic tell Tails that he can create his own fun, and he makes a swing and pretends to be an astronaut. So Sonic encourages us to use our imagination. That's dated in a world with video games. How naive. This episode was going to be brilliant, with Tails being an engineer genius making a hoverbike. But Robotnik really shouldn't have fooled him with his disguise, and Tails saying he's never gonna build anything again because he has to be useless instead just pissed me off. It would have been fine if Robotnik had just used the magical ray of his to look exactly like and sound just like Professor Vaughn, or brainwash Tails. Why insist on having the characters dressed up in paper-thin disguises just to, what, treat us like goldfish morons who will forget which character really is if it's not a terrible disguise? Is that it? He could have body switched with Vaughn. That would have made sense. I do like that they thought to bring back one of the scientific genius characters of the show, but did Tails have to get kidnapped? And did he have to somehow screw up when using his natural abilities to make jobs easier for him and piss off random civilians? It comes across as the writers hating Tails and being petty against them. I admire that the show is trying to have an author's saving throw about his portrayal of Tails. It shows a moment of brilliance and respectability for the show, but it's just a moment. It doesn't entirely succeed, it's just one episode, and it just leaves a sour note. I expected an episode called Tails Prevails to be much more about Tails prevailing, not Tails failing to recognize Robotnik in obvious disguise. Also, again, the acting for Tails is terrible, so it's hard to appreciate his lines.
I'm sorry, Sonic. It won't happen again. I promise.
I don't know what they were thinking keeping this actor on board. Why not just have the Sadie M actor who wasn't full of cringe? Why not just have an actor who wasn't just a guy who had only one major role his whole life? And I don't understand why Robotnik even did that plan anyways. Isn't he confident in his own engineering skills? What is he, lazy? Probably, but they never say that, and that would be out of character for Robotnik. I don't picture a guy who worked way too hard on trying to beat Sonic and ruin the world for years on end as lazy. He would have given up by now.